Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our WCN Author Spotlight. And today I am really excited to talk to Kris Burbank, co-author. I got to get, I don't want to be in trouble right off the bat, Kris, but goodness, co-author of Embracing Another Normal. And, the Kris's have it today. So we're going to go with K and C, and I think we'll kind of muddy along the path here. So, but welcome.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it seems like we've had 2 or 3 conversations before our recording sessions, and it just seems like we've really connected in our visits. And I've had a chance to read your book, and again, the Kris's really do have it today. But I have to start out by asking you kind of a personal question. Tell our listeners and our viewers about the night you went to see your favorite movie.
So I'm surprised because I'm emotional just hearing the question, and I write about this in the book early on. My favorite movie is a really old Jane Eyre film. I loved the book. The story is wonderful. The movie was great, and it was a date with my husband back in 1996. I had a little baby boy who was a little over a year old, and I was pregnant with another child. And this was in May. Our second child was supposed to be born in August. We went to the movie. We went out on a date. People came and, we arranged for a babysitter for our son, Henry. And I started feeling weird at the movie. And it's really interesting. When I think back, it's like a movie plays in my head. It's a black and white movie. I don't remember that much about the movie. I remember that it was one of the first times I was wearing maternity clothes. Because I just, I was
starting to show.
I was about 5 months pregnant.
Okay.
And I wanted to be comfortable in my jeans. And I remember going to the restroom. And I never go to the restroom in a movie. I never want to miss the movie. But I felt weird, and I went to the restroom, and I said, something's wrong. And so we came home, and I am a person who's very conscious of my effect on other people. And I didn't want to call the doctor because it was late at night. And my husband said, no, this is when we call the doctor. There's something wrong. And so we called the doctor, who said, there's probably nothing wrong, but why don't you just get to the emergency room and get checked out? And that was the night that our son Andrew was born, 4 months early.
4 months early.
And he was 800 grams, smaller than the size of my hand. And that was the beginning of our journey, my husband, John, and me, as the parents of a child with significant disabilities. And it's been a joy at times. It's been really scary at times. And it's what I write about in the book, my story and other people's stories.
And that was really the start of you embracing another normal.
Yeah, it was certainly the start of my adjusting and accepting, which is, as I discovered through my work with my co-author, Dr. Linda Hoops, one of the many challenges of raising individuals with disabilities and complex medical conditions, sort of accepting that what you expected is not what you received. It's not what you have. And I think we all in life have aspects of our lives that we have and didn't expect. And actually, that's kind of how Linda defines resilience. Right. So when we talk about building resilience in the book, it's the energy you need to manage and deal with what you have in life instead of what you expected you were going to have.
And that's really one of the major points that I took out of the book is building resilience. But how do we do this in the hustle and bustle and emotional drithers of things that happen that we did not expect to happen?
So we do it naturally, which I think is one of the best answers to that question, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm sitting as a listener, I like hearing that resilience is something we do naturally. I grew up being taught or just inferring that you were kind of like born resilient. And so somebody, as I'm sure they have said to you, Kris, would be, oh, wow, you are so resilient. I don't know how you do what you do or get through these things in life that, life has thrown
Mm-hmm.
at you. I remember people saying, oh, you're so much more resilient than, I am, or
Right.
my sister's more resilient than me. Right. But I think the story that that I learned from Linda, who has spent 30 years researching this topic, kind of on the organizational side, how do we as organizations manage and build resilience,
Right.
is that we are all born with a level of resiliency, the same way we're born with a level of creativity or with certain other strengths. And so how we build it, to answer your question, is that we work on these little strategies, these little muscles. In the book, we use the metaphor of muscles,
Yeah.
and we push up against things in life, right? And so, like as in a push up, you build strength and you build resilience, and it's not as hard as people think.
I think it oftentimes it's just a matter of being aware that we have that capability.
Definitely,
We're so busy in our day-to-day lives, and we're trying to meet goals. And I don't know, at least for me,
yeah.
aging has kind of settled that down. But as I continue to read through the book and that the resilience, I, I, it just really hit home in the way that you've just explained it, is that we're all capable of tapping into that. It's just a matter of finding that path on our journey, and it allows us to be comfortable in our
Yeah,
in our new normal.
right. And I don't mean to minimize it, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are people out there that are dealing with a whole host of challenges. Even if we just look at caregiving and we just look at parents who are caregivers, right? My challenges are very different from somebody else's challenges. And I
Right.
never wanted to write a book that was like The World According to Kris. I wanted to acknowledge that this is really personalized and everybody has their own set of challenges. But families and parents who are raising kids with disabilities and complex medical issues, we do have some common challenges. In our research for the book, we interviewed and surveyed more than 200 families,
Yeah.
and we talked to siblings, and and so this notion of everybody kind of coming up against some similar things, even if we come at them differently.
Mm-hmm.
There are some pretty basic ways that we can address those. Linda talks about resilience as being challenge readiness. I love that
Yeah. I like
description,
that. Yeah. Challenge
right?
readiness. Mm-hmm.
It's really, I think it's important for everyone in life, but certainly for parents, certainly for
Mm-hmm.
caregivers.
Sure.
And so, what can we be doing on a regular basis? And to your point, this noticing, right? It's kind of like the first step, noticing how do we respond to things? What's our natural tendency when
Mm-hmm.
we're confronted with something? And then how else might we respond? And how might that better serve us and better serve our families?
Right. And I know you know this, and most of all of my listeners know this as it relates to caregiving. There's, and I use this word lightly, there's a misnomer that caregiving is all about caring for seniors.
Mm.
Uh, but that's not necessarily true.
No.
Parents end up being, and I guess where I'm going with this question is how do you balance the difference between parenting and caregiving for a special needs child?
So I would tell you that in the early stages of being a parent, you don't balance it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just my own experience, but that's the experience of so many people that I have talked to in my time as a parent and as a disability advocate, as a coach of families and parents. Um, and and yet, I think that what people who finally figure it out tell you is, what you've heard before, which is I'm no good to anybody if
Right.
I'm not good to myself. Right.
That whole self-care, self-compassion is
Yeah.
universal when it relates to care, no matter
Yeah.
where we are on the care spectrum.
Yeah. And I think, again, based on everything I've heard and what I've experienced in my own life, that really is so hard because we have these preconceived notions in our head about what a good parent or a good caregiver
Right.
or
Right.
good
Mm,
partner is. And it's very hard for us sometimes to see things from a different perspective. Right. That's where this whole building resilience comes into play, because
exactly.
if we only go down that road based on what we think we know, we run out of steam.
Run out, and
You know.
it zaps our energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the other major components of this, which makes your book so successful, is that you've talked to parents. You've gathered stories from people, from like-minded people, and shared experiences that, um, and I want to say this kindly, that helps people in these predicaments, that all of a sudden you're faced with something that you had no plans for. You had no clue that this was, and then you're right in the middle of it with no
Mm-hmm.
warning. And what better resource? This is my editorial. What better resource than talking to other people who have been in the trenches?
Well, thank you. I somebody asked me once, why did you decide to do this? Why did you take the time? And I've never written a book. I never thought I was going to write a book. And I said, I finally met enough people who were struggling. And
Mm-hmm.
I say that on like the positive end and the negative end, right?
Right.
Somebody was doing really well in their career and really so thrilled with that, or maybe they had other children and the other kids were doing really well in life, and they were struggling because they were trying to balance their responsibility and their role as caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
um, Somebody couldn't find the resources that they needed or the supports that they needed, and they were struggling. I think that I realized, wow, this struggle is universal, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we don't have a place, we have the internet, right? But I wanted to capture and collect the stories of all these amazing people that have come into my family's life as a result of my son's premature birth.
Right.
And during the pandemic, all of our kids came home to live with us, and our kids are in their 20s now. And that includes my middle son Andrew, who has severe spastic quadriplegia, cerebral palsy, and some intellectual disabilities. And even he had been living in an apartment with caregivers. Everybody was really kind of launched, and they all came back and talk about struggle.
That's
So
embracing another
it
another
sure
normal.
is. Yeah, but I think it's a really great example, because I remember once being, everybody was kind of cranky, and we all can look back and we remember the pandemic and how hard and horrible it was, especially for so many families that lost loved ones. And I remember having a conversation with my son Andrew, who has these disabilities, and we started talking about all the people that are in our life that we would never ever have met
Mm-hmm.
if he were not a premature baby, if he were not somebody with cerebral palsy.
Right.
And as we were like, we literally sat down and made the list, right? And we were like writing down the names. And I looked at this and said, oh, wow, this is the book. This is, talking to these people and reaching out to more people and collecting more stories and then figuring out a way to share them so that these other folks that I was talking about previously who are maybe haven't found your podcast, or they live in a place where they don't have lots of support groups or a good hospital network or
Right.
a nice parent group at school, that they would feel less alone, that they would feel less isolated, that they would find the support and encouragement they need, even if it's just a couple of those stories that resonate with them.
It I'm you just led me into my common phrase. It's through story sharing where diversity meets the road to collaborate on a common cause, and people connect to stories. And I think when we talk about caregiving in and around care, there's really no boundaries. Everybody, no matter if you're black, white, gay, straight, no matter where you are, people get care. People want to, they all those because we just want to be able to help the person that is entrusted in our care, and that's when all those boundaries are broken. So, goodness.
And Kris, I want to say too, right off the bat, I don't have a disability, and I am very aware of the fact that my lived experience is very different from somebody who needs the kind of care that my son needs, or who has the kind of challenges that, physical and otherwise, that some people with disabilities have. Having said that, I have been a parent for decades of somebody, and I have experienced that challenge and that struggle, those joys too. But I think it's really important for parents to be able to have that voice. So we do reflect the voices of people with disabilities in the book.
Very well, I might add.
Oh, thanks. I'll make sure I share that, because those self-advocates are amazing young people.
Right.
And my interviews started with, well, what do you want parents to know? What did your parents do that was really good? What did your parents do that you wish they'd done differently? Those were really meaningful conversations.
Very much so.
And that's another thing that I am proud of with the book, that we were able to provide a platform for those voices and those stories. And I think it's important that parents hear all of those stories.
Talk about how raising a special needs child impacts relationships with your spouse and with your other children.
Well, it's interesting. I love that question. I just had one of my kids had to come home for something, and so we just spent yesterday with her brother. And my natural answer is, oh wow, it strengthens them. It makes them more meaningful than they might be otherwise. It begs of people to try harder. And the rewards are multitudinous. That's my family's experience.
Right.
Have we struggled? Yes. Have we argued? Yes. Have my husband and I disagreed on how to address things? Yes. But in many, many cases, your heart opens up a little bit bigger. You see a side of yourself that you did not see. Some of the minutia of life becomes less significant because you're I'm preaching to the choir here. Yeah. And I think, and we talk about this in the book, as well as I know, that this is not a journey to take solo. That we need other people. And so one of the chapters in the book is all about partnership and how to build and prioritize partnership. I don't know if I would have been the same kind of parent to my other two children uh, were it not for their brother. I believe that the parenting that we have done has been more intentional and probably more thoughtful because we have him in our family.
I'm taking a deep breath here because that was just so beautiful
Hmm.
because I know how caregiving in all facets impacts families, and
It's hard.
it's hard. It really is hard.
And
And
I am so aware of the, in Linda's research, she talks about, 4 kinds of energy,
mhm,
physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And caregiving calls upon all of those in such, you know, a humongous quantity.
some days they all they all
Yeah,
coexist in the same.
yeah.
I'm gonna use one of your metaphors in the book, in the same tornado. So
Mm, yeah, yeah. And we talk about positivity, which I would love to get your take on, because in the book, when I mention those muscles, positivity is a muscle that we talk about. It's a muscle
right,
that we learn to develop, um, but it's not the kind of positivity the way I thought about positivity when I was, growing up, when I was a young parent, up until I think really when I started this project. So when I say positivity to you, what comes to mind for you?
well, the first thought, which I don't think is the right thought, is be uh, uh, being grateful for the experience. And I think that holds true, but I think in this instance, it's a little bit deeper than that. It's it's embracing.
It is, so it was a leading question.
Yeah.
My husband, um, when I get irritated with him, which doesn't happen very often, I might add, if he's listening to this. Um,
He better be listening
but
to
we
it,
have we
or you
have
will get
come
irritated with him. So,
we have these conversations around toxic positivity because my husband is extremely positive.
mhm,
And when I started writing about positivity, I was really concerned that, we're suggesting to people that you try to develop your ability to be positive. And I didn't want people to take that as, oh my God, no. Now, every time my kid who has really challenging behaviors has a fit in the grocery store, I have to be positive about that. That come on. Life is asking enough of me already. Don't ask
mhm,
that of me. And
that's
and
right.
then they put the book down and they don't hear it. And so really what we talk about in positivity, yes, is that gratitude. It's a mind
Right.
shift.
It
It's
is.
it's the hope, it's seeing hope. And the big thing is that it's learning how to get comfortable with ambiguity, right? That I can remain positive even if I don't know how this is all going to work out. Even if I don't have all the answers. I'm going to see possibility. That's positive. It's not seeing negativity.
It's not.
It's
It's
not
right.
not complaining. It's just seeing hope, seeing possibility, and shifting your mindset so you're a little bit more comfortable with not knowing everything.
And it really comes back to that word resilience,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
finding that comfort zone in our challenges that allow us to. This is kind of a flippant comment, but allows us to kind of kick back in the midst of our tornadoes.
Well, because sometimes that's exactly what the situation calls
And
for.
sometimes there's some things that are just not fixable that minute or
It's
that
the
day or that week or that it's
but look, people most people who are caring for, and I use that term very broadly, caring for someone else in some capacity. Let's just say I'm the parent of my eldest child who is neurotypical and, going
Mm-hmm.
gangbusters.
Mm-hmm.
We're capable. We have things that in the book we call them superpowers, right? We have things we do really, really well. So picture yourself as a caregiver, picture yourself as a parent, picture yourself, quite honestly, as a boss in an environment, right, which calls for some resilience. That superpower, in the book we call it the curse of capability, right? It can become it can
Yeah,
become a detriment if you overuse it, right? And
exactly.
so
Mm-hmm.
I think in caregiving and in raising kids who have special challenges, it we part of being resilient is learning when to step back, learning how to ask for help, learning how to teach the person you're caring for to express their needs or step up and do something that maybe you never thought they could do, or that you know it it, so that it's not a curse, right?
Right. And, we learn along the way that when you used capabilities, this came to mind. We learn along the way that our caregiving capes are limited. We can't
Mm-hmm.
just snap them and make things go away.
Mm-hmm.
And the sooner we find our comfort zone and recognizing that, um, we're on a little bit of a better path to resilience.
And Kris, I think this applies to a variety of different caregiving situations. In my case with my son, um, as he grew, and this is true for many parents of kids with disabilities, he actually was gaining ability.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to teach it 3 or 4 different ways. He might not learn it as fast as somebody else, but over time, as a child is growing and developing, they are growing and developing, and they are learning. That need to not over rely on your superpower
Mm-hmm.
is really important in that situation. It's just as important if you're caring for somebody like my father, who had Alzheimer's and is declining. And I could swoop in and do everything because I'm so capable, right?
Right.
But I'm much better off at, sustaining my energy if I can figure out how to communicate better with my mom or my sisters or the nursing staff, you know? So it's applicable in both of those scenarios.
It's that very challenging balancing act from doing to kind of knowing when to step back and finding your new normal. So goodness, Kris.
We in my coaches training at Georgetown University, we had many, many discussions around the difference between doing and being.
Yes.
And I think this is so applicable when you think about what we're talking about today. We focus so much on doing, right? On solving problems and fixing things. There's a lot we can't fix in life. And sometimes it's not our job.
It's not our job to fix everything.
And sometimes if we focus so much on fixing, then we don't have the energy to love and encourage and support and be good to ourselves and to each
Mm-hmm.
other. It's a long haul.
It's a long haul. Yeah. What a delightful conversation. And I want to, well, I didn't know this isn't going to be our final conversation, but I'd be remiss without asking you that first day when you picked up the book and you held it in your hand, how did that feel?
That felt great.
Yeah.
Um, I was with my sisters, and they had actually ordered a couple copies of the book, and they had it waiting for me.
I
So
hope
that
they
was
asked you to
lovely.
autograph it. My goodness.
I'll tell you something else that feels really great.
Mm-hmm.
I love hearing from readers, and we have had a lot of readers reach out to us. And I love hearing I obviously love hearing from readers who are parents of kids with challenges. But I love hearing that this book and these strategies and this kind of mindset and approach to thinking about resilience, that it resonates with so many other people,
Mm-hmm.
like educators,
Right.
health professionals,
Right.
parents of kids who have, just a more traditional and typical journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that it reinforces what we all have in common, right? Just as like humanity, our lives
Yeah.
require us to find energy to get through things.
It's three common aspects that everybody wants to experience and wants to give: love, care, and commitment.
Mm-hmm.
We all want to receive it. We all want to give it. It comes in different forms, different cultural norms, but across the board.
Yeah.
And that's what's so prevalent when we're
Yeah.
in the care journey. So, Kris, Kris with the K, let all of our listeners and viewers know how they can purchase your book.
Well, so the book is available on Amazon. It's called Embracing Another Normal. You can also go to my website, which is just my name, krisburbank.com, and you can read more about the book. You can read what readers have shared with us in terms of their own reactions, and all kinds of other good stuff. I have a newsletter that goes out on a pretty regular basis. It's free, and you can sign up for it there too.
And we'll have all of Kris's contact information in the notes below. And Kris, what a delight visiting with you today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and demonstrating what resilience is all about.
Thank you so much, Kris. It's really been lovely.